don't think profit over people is good for these airline companies, because at the end of the day, they are doing this for the profit, but they have to take people into consideration, especially with travel needs so much planning, and like on people's part are trying to figure out their schedules and everything around that, around like the flight and the getting there is like one of the most important parts while traveling. So I think the airlines need to take that into consideration to make the experience better. And I think once you help the people, then you will also see the profit in there as well. Like they're getting that short-term profit, but in the long run, people might go, oh, hey, I actually don't like this airline, or actually don't like this method of travel because they don't take me into consideration.
Have you traveled by air in the past year?
Yeah, so we traveled together to Italy. That was in May. And then she travels more for work, so she might have.
Yeah, I've traveled a bunch this year for work.
If so, how will you describe your travel experiences overall?
To Italy, it was pretty good. The way there was fine. Long flight, obviously, but then the way back, I think we had a few delays. I don't know if that was just an organizational part for them, like the Italian. That was the Rome Fiumicino airport. I think it was just organizational issues there. I don't know if it was necessarily like the airline themselves. I think it might have just been the airport. But for work, you travel a lot more.
Yeah. I noticed like traveling, I almost get like every flight delayed. There's some sort of issue, especially with it's a lot of like the shorter flights as well, like the more regular flights too. So I think with that one to Italy was a more planned, longer, like international flight. But I found with a lot of like shorter flights that I take, always some sort of delay, like staffing issue, plane issues.
Airline workers sometimes goes on strike to demand better pay, working condition, or job security. Do you generally support this strike, or do you think the impact on travelers is too great, and why?
I think it's hard because I understand why they are going on strike, and I do think it has quite an impact on people though, so I don't blame the workers personally. I think it's the airline and the other people who come into play for the like decision making of the union. But I think it does have disruption, so that needs to be taken into consideration. But like, it's hard because at the end of the day, I understand why they're going on strike, and I think we need fair wages for the employees, and contract negotiations need to take place.
Do you feel the same?
Think, Cam?
Yeah.
I would say for strikes, I would probably agree with them the majority of the time. I think if it's a strike for better pay, better staffing, better hours, I think that would. It's one of those short-term pain, long-term gain kind of deals, and that's not only for the workers themselves, but also for the people traveling. A lot of these delays, I feel like, are because, a lot of these delays are we don't have a pilot for the plane, or we don't have staff for the plane, or the ground crew hasn't gotten the plane ready, or such and such and such, or we just don't have a plane. Your plane got moved somewhere else, and it's like a lot of these things are because of unavailability of the workers or some resources they have. And if they do these strikes and they go through, I feel like a lot of these airline companies can afford it at this point. A lot of companies, you see these numbers constantly. Oh, record profits this year, record profits year over year over year, and it's like, okay, at some point they're going to have to take a hit on the bottom line and just deal with it, because they can afford to make everyone's experiences better. They just choose not to.
Sometimes you find some airlines, they have an initial route for travelers.
Yeah.
People have booked and they're expected to join their flights maybe in the next couple of hours. And because the airline kind of discover a new route that will most likely pay them more, so they might want to decide to say, okay, you know what, let's go by the new route. Then those of us have booked for the initial flights, they can put them in another flight, have another arrangement for them. Do you think those kind of practice profit over people? Is it something you think is good?
No, I don't think profit over people is good for these airline companies, because at the end of the day, they are doing this for the profit, but they have to take people into consideration, especially with travel needs so much planning, and like on people's part are trying to figure out their schedules and everything around that, around like the flight and the getting there is like one of the most important parts while traveling. So I think the airlines need to take that into consideration to make the experience better. And I think once you help the people, then you will also see the profit in there as well. Like they're getting that short-term profit, but in the long run people might go, oh hey, I actually don't like this airline, or actually don't like this method of travel because they don't take me into consideration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I think when you're an airline company, you need customers to make money, and if you're alienating your customers by making these decisions and making them have worse flight experiences, odds are they're not going to choose you next. Like I know my family, we chose Sunwing for a while for most of our flights when we would go, if we went to like the Caribbean or places like that. And at one point, Sunwing had a huge outage, and there was like multiple delays, 7-hour plus delays. There were times when the flight got moved to the next day entirely. And after that, we have not chosen Sunwing just because in our minds they just have a bad rep. And maybe sometimes I understand that it's not necessarily the airline's fault. Some things can happen, but if it's something like you mentioned, where they're just we could use this plane for this flight instead to make more money, and we'll just skirt these guys 3 hours later or a 4-hour delay. I think when you buy something, you have an expectation that the company you're buying from is going to deliver on what they promise, and not actively choose to make your trip worse.
Because these cancellations are happening globally, would you say it's also affecting your confidence in the aviation industry?
I would say maybe, I feel like every time you go on an airplane now, I feel like you always just hear about, yeah, it's delayed, oh, cancellation, this and that. I know with global economic issues right now, with some of the wars around, especially the war of Iran, I know there was a lot of gas shortages, especially airline fuels, so prices rose a ton. And I sympathize with, the airlines having to now pay that hike in gas prices, but at the same time, they're shifting that cost on customers. All tickets are worth more now, stuff like that. So ultimately, is it probably hitting their bottom line? Maybe a little, but when ticket prices climb 30% in a year because of gas gas price increases, I just don't think there's no excuse for them. I don't personally, for me.
Imagine you're traveling for your vacation, you're traveling for summer, or you're traveling for business or for family reasons or emergency reasons, and your flight got cancelled. What would be your reaction?
I think I think naturally you'd be upset. Your flight's canceled and you probably have to make some other arrangements. If you book accommodations, you got to sort that out, which it would be unfortunate. But I think ultimately I'd understand why the workers are doing that and why it's happening. If it is repeated over and over again, I'd probably just not opt for that. If it's the same airline, I'd just not opt for that airline. But I think overall, there is frustration, but sympathy for the employees.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Obviously, the flight gets canceled, no matter what the reason is, you're gonna be upset about it. If it's for a strike, I feel like the unions of these airline companies publicize weeks or months in advance, we're striking these days. We're planning to strike these days unless these arrangements are met by the company. So if it's weeks in advance, oftentimes you can get another flight, and they'll usually refund you if it's canceled. So it might not be that much off your back. It's just a pain to get it changed over. Now I can understand, say you buy a ticket for $1,000 across to Rome, and then that airline company you find out is striking. Okay, and then you look at flights, and the only flights available are now $1,500. Yeah, I'm gonna be kind of upset. I'm gonna be really upset because now I'm $500 out, an extra $500 out, because they're striking. But I understand why they're striking. So it's I understand, but I also am upset.
Should I be worried about not getting fully refunded?
I think different airlines have different policies regarding strikes and refunds. I think if a strike's coming, I would probably first check what the airline's refund policies are and what they can offer you. If the flight is, you cancel your flight a week before and still receive 100% refund, I would look around and I would probably end up canceling. If I was like, okay, I think they're gonna strike, I'd probably cancel, because I can get my money back. If it's an airline that's oh, if you cancel now, you get 50% back. But in their policies, if we cancel your flight, you get 100% back. I would just keep it. I'd book another flight, and then worst case, they cancel, you get your money back. I guess the problem there then is that if both flights go, like say the strike doesn't happen, you're now out a flight ticket, probably. So it's bad both ways. You're never gonna win. But I think there should be, maybe this is something that the government should implement, or there should be regulations across the different airline companies that if something like that does happen and there's a strike and you book another ticket, they should either have to make up the difference to you, or there should be something regarding if you can't make it and you booked another flight because of a possible strike, they should still have to refund.
In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing airline company today?
For the airline or for the
Yeah, for the airline companies.
I think for the airline, from what I see, like the delays are a big issue there, and because the delay can be caused by a lot of different things, whether it's employee, like operations related, like with issues with the plane itself, issues with logistics of the airport as well. If they can't land at the airport or they can't take off because it's busy. So I think delays in general are probably a big pain point, and a lot of airlines struggle with that.
Have rising air prices changed the way you travel?
Yeah, for sure.
Are you traveling less often now?
Yeah, definitely. I think and when I am traveling, like, always could see if you can drive or take other means to it, because especially with short flights as well, like with the prices going up for short flights, sometimes you go, hey, like I'd rather just drive 10 hours than pay X amount for the flight. Would you?
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I guess it's always like, how much do you value your time? But if the short flight's $500 and you can spend $200 in gas to get there, I'd rather just drive.
When travel plans are disrupted, do you believe passengers receive fair compensation and assistance, and should airline be held to a higher standard?
In my experience, I haven't noticed that they're too fair with giving refunds, or if there's delays compensating fairly. I know actually like a year ago we were delayed like 8 hours at a Dominican airport. We were delayed for 8 hours and had to sit in that airport for 8 hours, and it's like, well, we didn't really get anything for that. And then the airline policies, they kind of work around it sometimes. I find if they say, oh yeah, we'll give you this amount of dollars or this amount of refund if there's a delay, but then in their policy it goes, oh, but the delay can only be this, and then they can just tell us, oh yeah, the delay wasn't because of those reasons, so we're not gonna give you any refund. Like that's the experience we had. So I think definitely they should be kept to a higher standard on that, because it's people's time, people's money. Like people are delayed overnight, you gotta go and get a hotel. Like some airlines honor that, some don't. There's a lot of like differentiating policies with that. But I think just in general, like, no, they don't. They're not too fair about it, the airlines.
Yeah, you want to say something to that?
Yeah, they should probably be held to a higher standard, but it's hard to force companies to do things that hurt their bottom line it's voluntary companies. It's hard to get a company to voluntarily do something that will hurt their bottom line. You have to force it. So it would have to be some sort of regulation across the board that applies to everyone. But I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon, unless a lot of people will start complaining. So.
Looking ahead, what one change would you like to see in improving air travel experiences?
I got it.
Okay.
This might be a little corny, but I want more seat room. We did what was that, 11-hour flight back from Italy, and that was probably the worst flight I've ever had. You know, I can't fold I can put the tray table in front of me, but I can't actually bend over because my head hits the seat in front of me, and I can't sleep sitting up, so I just am screwed, I guess. I mean, like, yeah, seat room, but you know, that's probably not going to change. The more seats you can pack in, the more money you make, so it is what it is. Delays, but again, I'm sure we've talked a lot about delays. There's a multitude of factors, can't always be controlled by the airlines, but I'm sure that there are a lot that are, well, not controlled, but a result of the airlines' choices, going back to unions and strikes and all that stuff. So that's probably what I would say.
One big change.
Some airlines have apps and text notifications that they'll send out as things are happening. I think that really helps. That would be
a
good
big one.
across the board. Yeah, they, more applications like real-time notifications. That would be good. Oh, internet. I know a lot of flights don't have it, or you have to pay extra for it. I think that would really improve the experience too if you had Wi-Fi on planes.
So I think technologies could be a good way to go as well.
Yeah, it'd be good. I'm sure the benefit, like, maybe will outweigh the one case where it'll
Exactly.
fail. The benefit to everyone else, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for this interview.
Thank